Hello, welcome back to Shock's Talks. I'm Shakti, and today I'm just going to give you some quick updates about what I've been studying, reading, and what's coming up for me. And then I'm going to share with you a really exciting itinerary that I have for Contact in the Desert 2025. And for those of you who don't know, that's one of the world's largest and best UFO conferences. It takes place in Palm Desert, and it's just a really interesting time. This will be my third time going. I'm bringing a couple of friends with me this year, and I'm really excited. So let's get into it. I'm laughing to myself because I'm trying to use the back camera now to record, but I still had to stand up and turn it on. I don't have one of those little monitors that you can see the front, you know what I mean, the little thing that shows you what's going on the screen. So I put a mirror behind my phone. It's old school over here. We're still learning, and God, if I had more time and money, I probably wouldn't even spend it on learning how to produce content better. I would just read more books. That's what I would do with my time. And if I had money, I would pay someone else to produce. That'd be cool. Anyway, let's talk about crop circles. We have not really talked about crop circles on this channel, but it's been coming up a lot lately because there was a pretty interesting one that popped up on May 15th, and I did a little digging and found out that there have actually been 3 new crop circles this year. So the first one is one that happened near Wimborne, Dorset, UK. The crop for this one was oilseed, and the date was April 11th, 2025. When I looked up a picture of that one, it just looked like a circle within a circle. So, I didn't do a lot of digging on that one because the other ones were the ones I was seeing videos about, but I found a really interesting site that has a catalog of all the recent crop circles, and I linked it below for you with all the other links of everything I'm going to talk about today. So the big one that I've been seeing a lot of videos about happened on May 15th, 2025. Also in the UK, this is a place called the Gallop near Sutton, Veny in Wiltshire. And I've watched a few videos on this. A lot of people are also interpreting the meaning of the crop circles, of course, but I just want to tell you a little bit of information about what it's like when this happens. So typically this happens on somebody's farm, and that farm is their business. And so the farmers who run these farms, they're not super stoked when a crop circle happens, because not only does it kind of potentially we'll get into the details of what I mean by this. It doesn't actually destroy the crop, but it does destroy their ability to make the regular profit that they would make off of that crop. And some of these are like high profit crops, like barley, for example. And it also is a big attraction. So of course, a lot of people always want to come tromp around and look at what's going on. And these farmers, they didn't plan for any of this, and they don't want a bunch of random people just traipsing around their properties, disturbing their animals and their workers and things like that. So typically what they do is they have to start to contain the area. Sometimes they do not permit people to come in at all, and they're just like not into it and they don't allow it. And the ones who do usually charge a fee so that they can make back some of the money that they lost by losing that crop, and they can also just manage the situation better, create a little of a formal process around going to visit these crops, certain hours that you can visit, and keeping people on a certain path, not just walking through their properties. So it's a big hassle for these farmers, and I did link a video below where one of these independent researchers who I've been following lately, a British person from the channel Interstellar Discussion, he goes and talks to the farmer, and you find out a little bit about how that man really feels about it. And you can also watch that video to see just what it's like to walk up to a crop circle and see what's going on. So there are This one on the 15th was a barley crop, and there are no signs of like cutting or chopping or hacking, like nothing, no leaf is like snipped or cut or burned or anything like that. So there's no sign of like machinery in the way that we would expect, like how we could do something like this. The stalks of barley are tall with like these little tufts, and they have what some people are calling like a little elbow or a node. So, like there will be a long part of the stalk and then like a little node. And sometimes during these crop circle events, those nodes elongate or swell, or they can be bent, different things. So there are some signatures of that irregular, like the pieces that were bent in the actual crop circle formation, the nodes are deformed in some way, just ever so slightly. But everything is just laid down. So from the very root to, the parts that are kind of bent, everything is just laid down, nothing is broken, and it's not dead. Like the actual crops that are laid down are still vibrant and alive, at least, when it first happens. And they're kind of woven. So it's like they're laid down, but they're kind of like in a woven pattern over each other. And this particular crop circle, when I saw it, I just thought it was absolutely gorgeous. Like it just blew me away, and it was so simple, and it looks like a gorgeous Celtic knot. But what you see is a square shape kind of going in this direction, or I guess you could view it from different angles, but the way I interpret it was like almost a diamond, but it's like a square. And in and out of that square is this looping pattern that kind of loops, almost looking like a butterfly when you look at it from a distance, but they're these almost like petals, but they're all woven like a Celtic knot. So they follow like a in and out weaving pattern, going in and out of the square and crisscrossing over each line in a very just beautiful and specific way. So you'll have to go look at the link below to see these images yourself. But I just thought this was such a special one. I really felt drawn to it. Different people interpreted these things as like the earthly realm and the soul kind of like breaking out of our material confines or something along those lines. I think some people were saying like, these crop circles are like these tattoos on the earth, and they're bringing frequencies into the earth. Other crop circles seem to be more about some kind of transmission or communication or a response to things that we've sent out. And some people think that just by looking at these images, you can get kind of a download, or you can get whatever special activation is being presented. So there's, lots of theories. There's no way to say for sure if any of that stuff is true, but it's interesting to consider, and it is interesting to consider just how it makes you feel. Just like any piece of art, when you look at it, what does it make you feel? And I definitely don't feel that drawn to all crop circles. But I really loved this one on the 15th in Sutton, Veny. So on the 19th, there was another one, and this was also in the UK, near Culliford Trebarrow, Weymouth, Dorset. I don't know if I'm pronouncing all of those things right. But anyway, this was another barley crop, and this is another very beautiful one, very different from the Celtic knot one that I really liked. So again, you'll have to go check those out. Another new channel that I've been enjoying a lot lately is called Area 52. And this is this guy, Chris Ramsay. He is friends with Jesse Michaels, who does American Alchemy. And I guess he had a career as a magician, and he's just kind of into this topic and studying about all of this. But what I'm enjoying about his channel is that he's digging really deep into the alien lore. So he's finding these transcripts and these books and reading them out loud, almost like story time, and just commenting and analyzing these different texts. And the one that I was listening to earlier today was supposed to be a transcript from this nurse who was communicating with one of the Roswell aliens that they recovered. So imagine back during that crash, that, you know, a couple bodies and living beings were somehow recovered and held for a while. And apparently this nurse was talking to one of them because she was the person in that group who could telepathically connect to this being. And the being calls itself Airl, like I think it's AIRL, and they talk about like their people as these Isby people. Anyway, it goes into this deep lore about, you know, what's going on this planet, these different shields and these different memory erasing things that happen, different souls from galactic families coming here, and like kind of this being a huge melting pot of like all these different beings, a lot of them taking over human bodies when they come, but they're put through some kind of process that makes them lose all their memories when they come here. So it gets really deep. They even talk about like the Vedas and like ancient Hinduism and how like Vishnu and Indra were part of these things. So this is kind of like, you know, the lore is kind of like the Ancient Aliens type stuff where you start to tie in all these different spiritualities and, you know, reinterpret old stories and myths. But this is all supposedly from this woman talking to an alien, and this is what the alien was telling her. And what I like about Chris Ramsay's way of going about this is that he's so clear about the fact that he's not trying to convince anybody of anything. He doesn't believe anything himself, but he doesn't not believe anything. And how fun is it to just put all of that aside and just listen to an interesting story? And he does stop every once in a while and he'll be like, okay, now this is sounding really like a movie, like I'm questioning this or that, and then he'll get back into it and he's like, whoa, that sounds really, you know. So it's just kind of fun to go along and have that experience with another person. So that's a really fun one, and I linked it below, Area 52. And I think I'm gonna let myself dig deeper into alien lore in general now, because I've laid this really solid grounded foundation for all of us. So I think we're all ready to just get a little more weird with it. We can speculate a little bit more. We can just explore these stories, because why not? You know, there's nothing to lose. You don't have to worry about looking stupid. I'll do it for you. And then I wanted to let you know that I finished reading Communion, and this is the famous book by Whitley Strieber. I also linked his website below, and I'll be seeing him at Contact in the Desert. And this was a really good book for me to read. The reason I chose to read it now, after all these years of not reading it, is because for some reason I was a little bit scared, because this book was like a book that kind of awakened a lot of people to this reality. But since I've already been studying it, this didn't have that effect on me. But I didn't know how dark or gruesome it might be, because sometimes the stories are a little bit horrific. This really wasn't. This is really a man explaining what he went through in detail. There's a lot of sharing of like the hypnotic regression sessions here, ones that he had and ones that his wife had. He talks about, you know, some experiences that his kid might have had and how he questioned him and the stuff that his kid said at that time. He gives his own deep analysis of what this might be. He kind of covers all the bases in terms of comparing it to folklore and also spiritual, religious stories and philosophies. He talks about like the impact on his life and overall. And then towards the end again, he does get deeper into more analysis and speculation. A lot of the stuff is stuff that we've read in many other books or heard about over and over again. So I'm trying to think. There was nothing really totally new, but what I think makes this such a special book is that Whitley Strieber, you know, he had a career as an author before this happened. So he's a real writer, and he's also just a very creative thinker. He's very philosophical himself, and he's very into exploring the mysteries, digging into all the possible connections. And then, of course, he has this lifelong, ongoing connection to what he calls the visitors, whatever these aliens or ETs might be. And so he's obviously still very deep in it all. You know, he's still very connected to the experiences, and he continues to explore these things on his YouTube channel. He does a lot of interviews. He's going to be at the conference. So he's still a very important person to listen to. But the reason I read this is because he wrote this new book, The Fourth Mind, and I'm really excited to check that out. He describes in detail what he thinks these visitors are, who they are, how they operate, biological functions. Like, it's more nitty-gritty, detailed information. So I'm very excited, and I'll share a full analysis of that once I read it. So that's a book that I've finished, and then this is a book that I'm starting. It was recommended to me by somebody on TikTok because I'm trying again to make videos very consistently and see if I can grow that account, you know, just see what I can do. But I am making some friends, and they do make some recommendations, which is really cool. So somebody told me about this book, and it's called Strangers Among Us. There we go. And this is by Ruth Montgomery. And I ordered it. It's a used copy, and it had Ruth's signature in it, which is really cool. It says, "For Gladys, who is a dear, Ruth Montgomery." So I have a special copy of this book. And this book looks like it was first published in 1979. She talks about, I think this centers around things that were happening in the early 70s. And this is a woman who works with spirit guides and automatic writing. She's written other books. Her other books are The World Before, Companions Along the Way, Born to Heal, A World Beyond, Hail to the Chiefs, Here and Hereafter, A Search for the Truth, Flowers at the White House, A Gift of Prophecy, The Phenomenal Jean Dixon, Mrs. LBJ, and Once There Was a Nun. So she's written a lot of books. And this book is about walk-ins. And the reason that I wanted to read this is because ever since, and here's a picture of her, Ruth Montgomery. Ever since Jake Barber was talking about the egg-shaped UAP, and it became really obvious to us that there is a psionic component to basically perhaps piloting the craft, but definitely calling the craft in. And the psionic component is the psychic component for anybody who's new to this, but we've all been here for a while, so you probably already know this. So it got me thinking. Now, I don't talk a lot about my own personal experiences because I haven't made sense of all of them yet. It's messy. But there was this time in my life where I do have a memory of sitting in front of a kind of video game and being instructed telepathically in my mind by something that wasn't physically present in the room with the other people that were there, but I had the impression that possibly some of the other people were either vessels for that communication or they were part of it somehow. Anyway, like I said, these things are weird and I don't want to go too deep into it, but the reason I'm bringing it up now is because I felt like I was learning something in that moment, and I was something or someone was trying to instruct me to put my consciousness into the video game and to make the character do whatever I wanted. And I was so confused at the time. I'm just like, first of all, why is this even a thing, you know? And why do you want me to do it? And it was just like, just do it, just try it. Look, they're doing it. It was like this weird experience. And I just couldn't get it. I couldn't grasp it, and I didn't want to do it, and I didn't like it. And ever since then, I just kind of tucked that memory away with some of the other really weird memories that didn't quite make sense to me. A lot of them had to do with, I'll just say, a time in my life when I was definitely on the edge. You know, I was having a really hard time mentally, emotionally. I was ingesting more illegal substances at that time, not getting good sleep, hanging out with a crew of people that were probably compromised in many ways, like on a soul level, I think, and like we all were at that time. And so I think My interpretation of it is honestly that, we were kind of giving up some of our autonomy by the choices that we were making, and that there was a lot of interference at that time, whether it was non-physical souls or aliens or demons or whatever. There was stuff crisscrossing through all of our different psyches, but it was like, it almost felt like my vessel was no longer my own, and there were always visitors trying to get in, trying to share space with me or take over my body, is what it felt like. And luckily, my soul was not down with that in the end, and so it wasn't able to happen. But it actually took me a lot of years after that time in my life to obviously get more sober and clear-headed in a physical sense, but also to reground my soul in my body. And I had to do a lot of spiritual work and get a lot of help with that from healers and things like that. So because of that, I became really interested in this idea of possession, or are there beings that are non-physical that are kind of fighting for a place here on Earth, and they want to get into our bodies in any way they can. Maybe they're not allowed to reincarnate and grow up from the child into the adult age, or maybe they're the kind of beings that just don't need the childhood experience and they just want to get in to a fully formed body, and so they're looking for opportunities, And surprisingly, there's a lot of lore about this kind of thing. So what I discovered is many different theories that helped me to examine that time in my life through various lenses. The work of Eve Lorgan was pretty interesting. This idea of non-human intelligence or non-physical entities interfering with human lives, almost in a godlike way, where they're playing with our emotions and pushing us into different scenarios to try to see how we'll respond and react. And, this gets into like the fairy lore and the folk tales too, of like changelings, or the idea of different beings that are kind of just messing with humanity, either testing us or just bullying us, maybe even. And there's a positive side to all of this, the same coin as well. But I think that I wanted to get a better understanding of what other people thought all of this might be. So this book, Strangers Among Us, is interesting because this is about the idea of walk-ins, which I've heard people call themselves walk-ins before, and what it refers to, well, I think there's two general definitions. One is more about like a soul that signed up to come into a body where there was an agreement, where the first soul was in the body and said, I'm going to leave at age 27 or whatever it is, and you can take over after that. And so the first soul does just that. They exit the body at a certain point, but the body stays alive because another soul gets right in it, And there are stories that explore this idea. I forgot that I had read this. It was a long time ago, but the woman who wrote the Twilight series, Stephanie Meyer, also wrote this really interesting book called The Host. And yes, it is kind of like teen drama / love story, but it does explore this idea of kind of an alien coming in and sharing a body with a human host, and the kind of struggle that goes on between them. And it was, the way it was written, the way that experience was really explored, I thought was fascinating, and I loved it in that book. I actually loved that book so much. And then there was this TV show called Behind Her Eyes, and that kind of approaches it more from the lucid dreaming and out-of-body perspective. But think about it. If you can get out of your body, then you can get into a body. And if you can get into your own body, why couldn't you get into any body? And so there's this idea of like body swapping that is explored in that TV show, and it's really interesting. And that one's a little more dark and spooky. In this walk-in book by Ruth Montgomery, she's talking so far about how, these loving, advanced souls come into a body and they have like a really high mission, and the soul that left before goes on and does their other lessons somewhere else. But the new soul that comes in usually has a whole different personality than the one that was there before, things like that. In some communities, and I know someone like this, he believes that he's an alien walk-in, and so he just was someone else and now he's someone else, you know what I mean? But the thing about the walk-in theory is that the body, the host body, does retain all of its memories. And so there is a kind of integration, and then the new soul it sounds like they can kind of choose to either play the part of that original person, or they can really just openly be like, I'm a walk-in, so they're out there. There's a lot of people who believe that this is their, or I should say, maybe not believe, but that is their experience, that they are a walk-in. So I'm going to read more about that and find out more. But the reason it ties back to Jake Barber is just like, I guess I'm just looking at the ways in which people describe this particular function of consciousness. And this is where Tom Campbell's work I find really helpful, because when you look at his theory of consciousness, it makes sense. All this stuff would be possible. Individual consciousness unit is the kind of like what we call the soul, but it's like the piece of the big wholeness or the oneness that is everything, that is making choices. It's the free will awareness unit. And those are the things that are experiencing through bodies in physical matter reality. And so sometimes that consciousness unit either gets displaced for some reason. I think there's a lot of ways that can happen: trauma, substance abuse, deep sadness, heartbreak. I think there are definitely some experiments that have gone on in terms of like evil, dark stuff that I don't even like to go too deep into, but how can we get a soul to eject from a body? And then what can we do to control that body? It's, the CIA's done a bunch of weird stuff, and there's other dark programs that experiment with things like that. So, obviously people are understanding that like the consciousness goes beyond the physical form. This is what out-of-body experience is all about. This is what remote viewing is all about. This is what telepathy is essentially about. It's a function of consciousness. And then the sort of positive side of possession is channeling. And channeling is really huge in the New Age communities, because it's this idea that you can bring a soul or a collective down through your vessel if you choose to allow that to happen. And then you can speak the message of that soul or that collective. And Tom Campbell would probably say, most of the time you're actually channeling yourself. You're actually channeling your own imagination, which I might agree with that. I think at the very least, your self, your consciousness, your mind, and your personality filter are going to filter that information. Now, I do think there are some exceptions. I do believe that there are some real channelers in the world who truly and completely step aside, but I think it's extremely rare. And I bet you they're the ones that like most of us don't know about. I don't think they're the most famous ones. I think most of those people, even if they're doing really good work that is serving a lot of people, I think there is some ego and personality involved. That's just my take on it. That's my experience of them. And I think a lot of people these days love to say like, oh, my guides told me this, or oh, my whatever told me that, or, my higher self, or my crew, I think that's fine. I think that is our imagination stepping in to help us make sense of the information that's coming to us from the larger consciousness system. And that's why AI is going to be an interesting new way for us to experience this analog to the consciousness system, because like internet and technology, all of these things, I think of them as like they're derivatives of the consciousness system. And so we are learning more about ourselves and our true nature through these things that we're creating. But we don't want to learn so much about the stuff we're creating that we forget to go back to like the essence and the source, which is why I'm more interested in like reading as many books as I can than outsourcing my mind to an AI. But I know I'm going to come around, because it's inevitable. It's here. It's about to take over everything. I need to let go of probably some of my fear and skepticism and just figure out how to interact optimally with it. But I have been taking a break. I did ask ChatGPT for 2 summaries a week ago or so of a book and a show, because I wanted to remember some stuff from them, but I haven't been having deep conversations. So we'll see how it goes. We're all gonna use it, I think. I just feel like on the cusp of something new like this, why not just take it slow? Why not just breathe, observe, feel, and I don't have to be at the leading edge of like trying everything and knowing how everything works necessarily. Like maybe just let it roll out and kind of see what happens. I don't know. That's how I'm feeling about it. I guess I'm also just prolonging this moment of like innocence because I do feel like we're about to flip our reality. So anyway, that was a tangent about the books that I'm reading. Cool. Okay, New Paradigm Institute. So the New Paradigm Institute, which is Daniel Sheehan's group, we've talked about him. He's the lawyer that does all the work for disclosure, whistleblower protections, and things like that. They published a white paper, and I had to look up what is a white paper because I didn't know. So here's what it is in case you don't know. A white paper is a comprehensive, authoritative document that addresses a specific problem or issue and proposes solutions or recommendations. It's often used to educate readers and influence their decision-making processes. White papers are frequently used in business, politics, and technical fields to provide in-depth information and persuasive arguments. So this paper is called Disinformation, the U.S. Government's Suppression of Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena and Advanced Science. And this has been a big part of the conversation. We know whistleblowers are telling us, there's crash retrieval programs, there's secrets, there's a lack of oversight, like this is crazy, what's going on? That's what these whistleblowers are saying. But also they're giving us hints that like there's advanced science. There are technological advances that have already been made that have not been shared with the people. And one of the theories that's been floating around for a while around this is that part of why disclosure is happening is just because the big powers that be want to release new tech, and they can't do it without explaining a little bit of where they got it from. So they have to start releasing some more information so that the public can be like, oh, this is that UFO tech, or oh, this, like, I don't know. This is just a theory that has circulated around. So there could be something to it. There does seem to be at least a synchronicity when it comes to technological advancements and humankind moving forward into this new era of like whatever it is our species is going to be with AI, with, maybe with our connection to these non-physical entities, or I don't know, there's something going on here where I think even AI probably came from alien tech. I think that could be a thing, Some people think like AI has always been inevitable. We were always moving towards this. It's been written about in science fiction. It's something that we've all imagined, and so of course it was going to happen. But maybe there is a kind of, I just believe that other civilizations are probably also using versions of AI. And so maybe there's something there that is helping to propel us forward with it so quickly. Who knows? But I'm going to read you a description from this essay just of what it's going to cover. And I haven't read the whole thing yet. It's 30 pages, so I'm going to go print it out. But here's a little section from the beginning just to let us know what they're going to get into in this paper. This essay examines and critiques the systematic use of disinformation, secrecy, and legislative mechanisms by the United States government to suppress knowledge of the reality of non-human intelligence, NHI, unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, and certain advanced scientific research/innovation. Drawing on declassified documents, congressional investigations, news sources, and recent whistleblower testimony, this paper explores how executive branch entities have used narrative control over classification and legislative instruments to purposely obstruct public understanding and scientific progress concerning UAP and certain advanced sciences. Historical case studies, including official UAP investigations, Project Stargate, MK Ultra, COINTELPRO, Operation Mockingbird, are analyzed to illustrate a durable pattern of information suppression extending from the Cold War to the present. This paper further evaluates the role of special access programs. That's what we hear about. They're called SAPs, like David Grush talked about that. The UAP Security Classification Guide, and specific statutory frameworks such as the Atomic Energy Act and the Invention Secrecy Act to conceal potentially transformative technologies. Ultimately, the essay calls for urgent legislative and executive branch reforms to ensure transparency, restore public trust, and democratize access to paradigm-shifting scientific discoveries. It's a 3-day weekend, so I think I could read this paper and do a report on it maybe by Monday. I'm excited to read it. What I like about this is obviously the level of intelligence and ability when it comes to Daniel Sheehan and all the people that work with him is just it's so professional. I mean, they're lawyers, they're some of the smartest people. They have so many different, Daniel Sheehan has had so many different interesting chapters in his career. I need those kinds of brains to help me understand this stuff in a way that is like, it's like a little bit beyond my understanding level, so it always elevates me. It causes me to learn more. And I've read about a lot of this cover-up stuff and some of the tactics that have been used since that Cold War time, but this is going to be really cool because they're going to deep dive into 4 different programs that I think are going to be really fun to learn about. Project Stargate, MK Ultra, COINTELPRO, Operation Mockingbird. So to get an in-depth analysis of all of those from this caliber of, researcher, I think is going to be really cool. And let me just see here in the paper. I wonder who all contributed to this. If it was, Kevin Wright is the one who wrote this paper. And that is the by Kevin Wright, Press Relations Manager and Policy Liaison, New Paradigm Institute. So that's who wrote this paper. And yeah, it starts off with an executive summary going into the July 26, 2023 hearing. They're talking about David Grush. They're going to talk about Lou Elizondo, Eric Davis. By the way, Eric Davis is the one that recently said in a briefing to the Congress that wasn't public, there are 4 types of alien beings that are predominantly here: reptilian, insectoid or insectoid, gray, and what people call the Nordics. And what else are they going to go into? These different projects, the different debunking efforts, the Robertson Panel, Project Blue Book. They're going to go into the Condon Report. So this will just be a good text to study and a good high-level look at the cover-up and disinformation efforts. And it's important now because I think what we can all probably easily conclude is that there is still an ongoing suppression of this information, even if it has let up in the last few years, or maybe nobody ever wanted it to dissolve in any way, shape, or form. But the fact that we did create the internet and we have been able to connect more with each other and ideas spread quicker might be a real threat to the disinformation campaign. And I'm sure they've evolved their tactics in so many ways that we can't even detect, especially if they have advanced science and tech at their disposal. But it's still worth fighting for the truth. So that's the serious stuff that I'm going to get into. The fun stuff that's interesting is there's going to be a convention called the Psi Games, and that's PSI 2025. And I'm going to read you about the Psi Games from their website, but I've linked the website below. And this is happening in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is where I went to half of my high school years. So I kind of want to go back and check this out because Tom Campbell's going to be there. I'll go and look at the website in a second here, but let me read you about this. So the Psi Games are a groundbreaking tournament designed to explore and celebrate the full spectrum of psychic abilities. Grounded in the principles of the Bannister effect, we aim to open participants' and spectators' minds to the vast potential of Psi by showcasing what is truly possible. This event is not about proving the impossible, but about discovering what is achievable when we unite curiosity, integrity, and skill in a community-driven environment. We bring together 5 teams of 5, spanning youth and adult divisions, to engage in friendly yet challenging Psi-based competitions. Each team member focuses on one of 5 core categories: remote viewing, mind sight, precognition, psychokinesis, and dowsing, bringing their best abilities to the forefront. Points are awarded based on performance, with a panel of expert judges providing an objective standard for each Psi challenge. Our vision is to create a space that goes beyond traditional competition, fostering an atmosphere of collaboration, playfulness, and personal growth. The Psi Games seek to establish a new standard for psychic performance, offering participants a unique opportunity to refine their skills while building lasting connections. By doing so, we hope to inspire a broader appreciation for the study and practice of psychic phenomena and to create an international stage where these abilities can be recognized, celebrated, and explored. So it's pretty cool. I think this is really interesting. I think this is the very first time they've ever done this. Tom Campbell is a keynote speaker. Daniel Sheehan is going to be there, who we just talked about from the New Paradigm Institute. Chris Bledsoe, author of UFO of God. This guy, Adam Curry, an inventor and tech entrepreneur, representing entangled consciousness. Diane Hennessy Powell from the Telepathy Tapes podcast. Paul H. Smith, I've seen him before at Contact in the Desert. He's a remote viewing expert and military Stargate program officer. Chris Ramsay, the mental illusionist and mentalist, he's the guy that I was just talking about, Area 52, where he's reading all the stories and getting into the alien lore. And a couple other people who I've never heard of before. I'm just skimming down. There's Alan Steinfeld is one. He's a consciousness explorer and TV host. He's also been a host of panels at Contact in the Desert. And he has a book that I read that I really liked. Or at least it was a collection of essays, I think, by different people, not all by him. And then I see like some Reiki masters, some simulation hypothesis people, the seeing without eyes people, so I guess they'll probably do some stuff around that, and then a hypnotherapist. Let's see, how much are the tickets? I want to go to this. Another thing I would do if I had limitless money. So the general admission is $150, which is not bad. There's a silver package for $375, and then they go up from there. You know, each package gets you access to more things. The basic one gets you access to the tournament, the awards ceremony, and all of the community events, and access to the exhibitor hall. The next level up, you get to go to all the keynote addresses, all the lectures, 2 workshops, 3 meals. That's the one I want. That's $375. If anyone wants to donate to me ever, I now have a PayPal and a Venmo linked in my description box below. So if you want to help me buy a ticket to the Psi Games, you know, feel free to drop a donation. But I might be able to figure this out. And then this is going to happen August 1st through the 3rd at the Omni Hotel. My mom worked there for a little while when I was a kid on downtown Charlottesville. So that's interesting. And There is a section to meet the players also coming soon. It's not up on the website yet. You can still apply for the games if you have Psi abilities that you want to showcase in a really fun way like this. And looks like you can become a volunteer as well. Let's see if the venue really is the Omni that I think it is. There's probably multiple Omnis there. Oh, anyway, the website looks like it's not all the way full yet. They're still putting certain things in. Let's see. Oh yeah, it looks like it is the downtown one based on the pictures on the site. So yeah, it's a really nice hotel. Anyway, that's fun. And speaking of fun and conferences, I'm so excited because a week from today, I will be back at CITD. So every year I print out my itinerary. As you can see, there are multiple options of what you can go to at any given hour, on the hour, whatever, you know what I mean. So this is what I'm doing. On Friday, May 30th, at 9 a.m. after I eat some breakfast and have some coffee and walk my dog. I'm hoping, there's two things I want to do and I'm kind of torn, but I think I'll go to the panel because panels are like just so cool. It's cool to hear a whole spread of people up on the stage. So the panel is called Unveiling Reality, From Psychedelics to Synchronicity. And this has Clyde Lewis as the host, Dr. Pascal Michael, Anthony Peake, Adam Apollo, Jason Quitt, Rizwan Virk, and Paul Hynek. Now, I've met Paul Hynek before in a workshop there. I've listened to him. I've heard Jason Quitt. I really liked him. Anthony Peake. The others I'm not as familiar with. I think Dr. Pascal Michael, I did hear from him in another panel. So this will be cool. I'll totally do a full breakdown of everything when I get back from this conference. The other thing happening at 9 a.m. is a Whitley Strieber lecture, but I think I'm going to get him in on Saturday or find another panel that he's on instead of going to his lecture that's just him. That's called Living with the Unknown, but that is interesting too. At 11, I want to go to the UFOs and USOs, Unveiling the Mysteries of the Skies and Seas, of course, because Richard Dolan, my favorite. But anyway, the host is Veny Adams. We have Richard Dolan, Jim Ledwith, Brian Belitzos, Dean Alioto, Thomas Jane, and Daniel Sheehan. So I think this will be a really good one. And then we have a very interesting one, UAP and nukes at 1 p.m., disturbing confrontations over nuclear bases. Stephen Bassett is the host. This also has Daniel Sheehan, Bryce Zabel, Dave Schindel, Robert Salas, Robert Jameson, and Ryan Wood. There's also a lecture during that time with Rizwan Virk called The Simulation Hypothesis, AI, NPCs, and Ancient Religions, which sounds interesting to me, so I'm a little bit torn. But UAP and nukes, it's pretty important to think about. I don't know. My mood will tell me what to do in that moment. And then 3 o'clock, we have the one I'm most excited about on Friday, and this is Psionics, The Profound Power of the Mind. The host is Hakeem Isier, or Eiler. I can't read that if it's an I or a L. Eiler, maybe. Anyway, this is the one with Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, Jesse Michaels from American Alchemy, Tracy Garbett Dolan, Richard Dolan's wife and a remote viewer, and Lisa Strickland, Carolyn Corey, and Whitley Strieber. So I'll get Whitley in the afternoon on Friday. And then that evening, I'll grab some dinner with my friends. Maybe we'll go off campus and get Mexican food and margaritas at a little place that I found when I was there before that I really liked. Or we'll go wherever they want. I'll walk my dog again, and then I'll come back and I'll check out a little Carolyn Corey lecture in the evening, maybe, or I might just chill that night because it's pretty stimulating and exhausting, to be honest. A full day of these lectures. It's like very exciting environment, so many people. Saturday I hope this is interesting to you guys. Saturday at 9 a.m., I'm going to go check out Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell. This lecture is called Autism, the Akashic Records, and the Astral Realm. I find this fascinating because I didn't know that she was going to talk about the Akashic Records or the Astral Realm. So I'm very excited about this lecture. At 11, I'm thinking either Yvonne Smith or Linda Moulton Howe. Looks like the Linda Moulton Howe one is a workshop, and usually you have to pay extra for those, and I didn't do that, so I'll probably just go to Yvonne Smith. And then after lunch, we have Cosmic Code Breakers, AI, Consciousness, and the Next Horizon. Maybe I'll feel more positive about AI after this conference again, because I know there's going to be a lot of proponents of AI here for sure. And this will be Matthew James Bailey and Paul Hynek. And then at 2 o'clock, for the first time on the stage at Contact in the Desert, Chris Bledsoe will be talking. He was there before, last year, but I don't know if he was really talking. At least, maybe he was on a panel, but I don't know if he had his own lecture. I think this might be the first time that he's up on stage. So I might be wrong, but I think I'm right. I'll let you know what I find out when I go there. And then there's actually a live podcast recording of American Alchemy with Jesse Michaels at 4 to 5, and the guest is Richard Dolan, so I would really like to go to that too. And this is the day that we bought meal passes for, so there's like catered food at the hotel. You can pop in, grab some quick lunch, and go right to another lecture for lunch and dinner. So on Saturday I'll probably do that for all my meals, or at least 2 of them. I think we did we do breakfast and lunch, or lunch and dinner? I think we did 2 meals. I'll have to look. And then at 6, there's a Kelly Chase lecture, and she's the host of the UFO Rabbit Hole podcast. Now Cosmosis is the continuation of that with J. Christopher King. I'm getting too excited. My throat is getting dry. But I'm at the end of this. So the Kelly Chase lecture is the UFO narrative wars, how belief, bias, and media shape the phenomena. And then I want to go to a film screening that night of The Alien Perspective Part 1. Okay, I guess that's all I can talk today. I need to go drink some water. Check out the links below. Thank you so much for being here with me, as always. If you like it with the thumbs up, and share it and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Shocks Talks.